And then we started a series maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now called The Next Right Thing. And this one's all about decision making. Right? And we know decision making can be stressful. It's hard. We want to make a good decision. We want to make a decision that's honoring to God, that kind of leads us in a good direction. And so we said, how do you do that, right? What's the process of how you would approach decision making? And at the end of it, you look and say, man, I'm really glad I went through all that and landed in the place that I landed in. And so that's what we've been talking about over the course of this series. And if you're just jumping in today, that's awesome. Thrilled that you're here. Want you to know if you want to or if you can, encourage you to maybe go catch up online on the last handful of weeks. This series in particular is really helpful when you kind of take it in total, right? You kind of take all of the messages in. We walk through a series of questions over a whole bunch of weeks, and you're going to want to ask all those questions, and kind of we turn those questions into prayers in some ways, and we say we want to look at all those together, and as we come out the other side, as we wrap the series up here next weekend, I think you'll be able to say, hey, if I walk through all that, I feel like I have really done my homework and my due diligence to make this big life choice, right? So if you're in the middle of making a decision about a move or a career or what college to go to, or even a relationship maybe that you're thinking about advancing, some of this can really help provide clarity and help you move in a direction that I think you're going to be proud of. So here's the questions. I'm going to just review them real quick for you that we've walked through so far, and then we'll introduce our question for today. The first question was this, the most important one: have I chosen to follow Jesus and pursue his kingdom? There is no question more important than that one. That one will clarify and will actually eliminate an enormous number of bad decisions. We said that a huge part of making great decisions is getting rid of a bunch of the bad ones. And this decision to pursue Christ and to follow him helps us get into the right ballpark, where now we're looking at a bunch of the right decisions because we are kind of centered into the things of God. Right? So have I chosen to do that? The next question was this: can I make this decision with a clear conscience? Okay, now that I'm in the right ballpark, do I know what God has said about this decision I'm about to make? Can I be honest about my own heart? And if I can do this, kind of working through my own decision-making filter of asking, can I do this without guilt, without shame? Is this something that I would be proud to make? And does this cause somebody to stumble? A loaded conversation there. Catch that one, of course, if you missed it. And then the next question was, have I asked wise people for wise counsel on this decision? One of the things we're really passionate about here at Grace, and shows up in the Bible all the time, is the importance of having what we call a wisdom team, right? Where you have a group of people that follow Jesus. Doesn't have to be a ton of people, but a few people at least, that you can say, here's what I'm thinking. Here's the decision I'm thinking about making. Can you help me see if there's any blind spots that I'm not considering as I go to make this decision, right? And ask for counsel and feedback on it. And then last weekend, we asked this one. We said, what does it mean to be faithful in this phase of life? Huge deal here. A lot of times, what happens is we kind of miss what it means to be faithful in the moment or the season or the phase that we're in. And it's often in faithfulness to where we are that we get clarity about what's next. And so make sure to process through kind of any or all of those if you missed them. And then here's where we want to go today as we kind of wrap up and dial into the actual decision-making process. What is the motivation behind this decision, right? What is the motivation behind this decision? So where we want to go today is we want to drive into, now that I have some decent options, I want to sift through what's better and best, right? We've eliminated a lot of stuff that's easy to get rid of. Now, how do I make sure I make a great decision, not just one that I can kind of get away with? How do I do that? I look at my motivation. I look at the why, right? When I can grab hold of kind of the why, the engine that is behind this, that's driving this decision, I can really look at what is this thing really about for me? So what we're going to do today, we'll introduce some passages here in a second, but I'm going to give you some tools and a series of of questions to dive deeper. You're going to either want to take some pictures of the screen when we introduce those or take some notes if you're a note taker, because this is going to be something you want to walk away with today and be able to use on your own time. And I think you're going to be served tremendously by it. But here's the first passage we want to look at. We recognize that as followers of Jesus, there's a level of freedom that you're given. That freedom actually is incredible. It's an incredible gift. I love what Paul says here in 1 Corinthians 10. He's quoting some people that were saying this to him. He says, I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. And the idea here is that there's a lot of decisions that might be allowable, right? I might be able to kind of get away with it, so to say, but it may not make that a great decision. It may not be what's best. And so part of what I want to recognize is I don't want to be in the lane of asking, hey, as I'm making decisions, what can I get away with? What am I allowed to do? I want to steer towards the question, what is going to be the very best decision I can make? Right? And that separator alone is going to move me into closer to where God would want me to be, right? Not everything is constructive or beneficial. There's a lot of things that are permissible or allowable. Some things aren't. We've talked about that already. But in the area of freedom, I want to look and say, what is going to be real? What's going to move the needle and be a real game changer that I'm going to look back on and say that is exactly the decision that I'm glad that I made. Right? Here's a prayer that this prayer has been so helpful for me. This is Paul, the Apostle Paul, leader in the early church, praying for a group of people, the Philippians. And here's what he says. This one has helped me a ton. He says, this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. Here's what he's saying. He's saying, I pray for you that your love would grow more and more, and that as your love grows, that it would grow in knowledge and depth of insight. So you're going to understand how to love well. And as you do that, that's going to help you figure out what the best thing is. It is kind of how I think of it, right? Here's you and me. We're trying to make good decisions, and we're trying to figure out how do we kind of aim these decisions? What are we aiming at as we start to think about where we're headed? And what Paul's going to say is, what I hope and pray for you is that you, as you look at making a call, that what you're going to do is you're going to aim towards love, right? You're going to aim towards love. I want the motivation of what I'm aiming at to be love. And you're like, how does that work? I want to love Jesus, right? I want to love Jesus first and most. I want to love others as myself, right? And that is the order that we would approach it at. And in fact, there's this, right? Somebody pointed this out to me. It's kind of cheesy, but you'll remember it. They said the formula for joy is that, right? Jesus, others, yourself. I like that, right? It's kind of helpful. Kind of cheesy, but you're going to remember, right? Jesus, oh, you don't have to clap. I didn't make it up, right? So I'm just quoting somebody else, right? Jesus, others, yourself. Super helpful. And he says, I want to love Jesus. I want to love others. And he says, you're going to love yourself anyway, so you don't have to work that hard at that one. But even that is okay. But I want to do it in that order. And he says, yeah, I want you to, right? I'm praying that your love would grow more and more and in knowledge and depth of insight. As we're aiming towards love, what qualifies that, what clarifies that arrow to make sure that I'm doing it well is he's going to use the words, right, knowledge and depth of insight. As I grow to understand who Jesus is, what his heart is like, what he wants, I'm gonna nail this target more and more because I'm going to understand what the heart of Jesus is like. As I have knowledge and depth of insight, that's going to help me know how to love others well, right? And we might think we know what is loving to other people or what is loving to Jesus as we're making decisions. But the reality is these pieces help really steer this arrow and get me into the right place when it comes to love. I remember in the early part of my marriage, I was trying to be a good husband and try to be romantic. And so on special occasions, sometimes I would buy flowers for Lori, my wife, and I would give her those flowers and think like I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. I'm being romantic, right? I gave her flowers. That's like what you're supposed to do. It's what happens in the movies. Flowers, right? And she would be like, thanks, and I was like, feels kind of like, it kind of flopped a little bit. And I was like, maybe I'll get some different flowers, right? I'll try again, get some different flowers. And eventually, we got to this place of comfort in our relationship or dating, and then eventually our marriage relationship. And she's like, can I just be honest with you? And I was like, yeah, totally. She's like, I don't really like flowers. I was like, oh, really? Because it seems like flowers are kind of a big deal. It seems like the way, don't really like them. She's like, they just fade and they die, and then I throw them away. I was like, okay, that's cool. What do you like? She's like, I'd feel really loved if you just gave me some Butterfingers. And I was like, really? I was like totally surprised by that. She's like, yeah. In fact, she's like, any kind of chocolate in this whole range right here, totally awesome. Totally feel loved by that. I was like, had no idea, okay? I had no idea that flowers were a total flop and a miss, chocolate, big win, right? So Butterfingers came flowing in, right? And that's a win. Now, I needed knowledge and depth of insight on how to love her, and that steered, right, that silly illustration, but in the big picture, this is how this works. What I do when I go open the Bible is I'm not just trying to have some information that I memorize or some sound smart because I can quote some verses or get heady about theology. I'm trying to know a person. A person has made himself known largely through this book, and I get to know his heart and what makes him tick and what fires him up, what makes him angry, what makes him excited. It's like there's a lot here. And I can know, man, when I make a decision like that, that's how Jesus likes to be loved, because knowledge and insight steers that arrow right into the target. The same is true with people, man, right? The people in our lives, like my story about, the flowers. As I'm making decisions, we start to understand and know, our depth of insight grows, and we can understand, what does that mean to be loving to others? And there's not just this blanket answer. These things help to form that more and more, right? So as I make decisions, I want to think about loving Christ, loving others, and then there's an aspect we're going to get to at the end. Yeah, even we have a freedom to do what we want at some level. We'll talk about how that works. First, what I want to do is we look at motivations. I'm going to give you guys 10 kind of drill down deeper questions, okay? You're going to want to take notes. You're going to want to take a picture if you want of the screen. And we're going to dive into these. These are going to help us get to some motivations. I have a hard time kind of uncovering these. I bet you do too. But here's what we're going to look at as we kind of look at, am I actually aiming at the things that I hope I'm aiming at, right? Or I think I am. Here's the questions we're going to start with. Number one is kind of an easy one, right? What do I really want to get out of this, right? I want to start at the very beginning and just ask myself, gut check. What am I really hoping to gain from this decision? What, at the end of it, why would I do that, right? Kind of start there. It makes me pause real quick. Here's going to be the next one. We'll build. They'll stay on the screen here for a second. Here's a great one. Would I still want this if nobody else ever knew about it? Would I still want this if nobody else ever knew about it? Guys, what this question does is this question pulls me out of making decisions for status only. Sometimes we're going to buy the car or buy the house or choose the career or the college or the thing because it feels impressive to others. It might make me seem a certain way to other people, and I'm going to choose it because it seems like this is popular. We would never say this out loud probably, but it's in the background. And when I stop and ask this question, wait a minute, I don't even know if I want that. It just seems like everybody else wants that. Well, why would I choose that if nobody else ever even knew about that? I wouldn't even want to take that job. I maybe wouldn't even mess with that car. I'm only kind of doing that because other people are going to perceive me or view me a certain way. Right? Here's the next question. Am I making this decision out of fear, comfort, pride, or love? Right? As I'm aiming at love. I think we would all kind of assume that yeah, I'm on this track until we start to look at, wait a minute, what's the fear that's actually steering me off course? Is this just a desire for comfort? Is it actually pride? I want people to think I'm awesome in some way. What is moving me in this decision? Right, guys? And we have to own that comfort is an idol. Right, and often if I'm gonna make a comfort decision, that's really the primary driver. I'm probably not gonna live out the purposes that God created me for. I'm probably not. Comfort is fine in its rightful place. It's not fine as the motivator or driver of my life. It's comfort fits into the margins of my life as I pursue the purposes that God created me for. Right? So I get clear about that. What's driving this? Is it comfort? Is it fear? If I'm going to move towards a life of love, here's what I'm going to have to get comfortable doing. Love will always pull me towards squaring off with fears in my life. Love makes you do stuff that's scary. It just does. It makes you sacrifice. Love will make you give. Love will make you move into arenas that you never saw yourself being in. And so when I gut check this question, I can ask, wait a minute, am I letting fear shrink me and paralyze me and pull me off track? Is comfort doing that? Is pride doing that? Or am I moving squarely towards love? I love this passage. Paul says this to Timothy. He says, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid or fearful or cowardly, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. This is what God's Spirit does in us. Did you know that? If you're a follower of Jesus today, that you have that Spirit? If you're not a follower of Christ, did you know that this is what Christ followers are supposed to look like, that God made them to look like? Followers of Jesus aren't made or created or called to be judgmental, hypocritical, small-minded, and fearful. We're called to be bold and courageous and loving and gentle. We're called to move towards in love, right? We're not to shrink back out of fear. This is who we're called to be, right? This is the Spirit that God has given us. Here's the next question. Is this about proving something to myself or to someone else? Guys, this is a tough one. Sometimes we don't know what's going on inside of us, and sometimes what happens is there's a voice way back here in our story, and somebody said to us, you're never going to amount to anything, or you can't do this one thing. And sometimes what we'll do is we'll spend a year or 10 years or a whole lifetime trying to prove somebody wrong when they said something to us in 4th grade. Right? It's real. And we wouldn't recognize that that's what's happening, but that's actually what can happen. I actually don't even care about any of this. All I'm trying to do is prove Uncle Frank wrong, that I'm never going to amount to anything. Is that what's going on? I'm trying to prove my dad wrong, or my mom wrong, or my coach wrong, or my blah, blah wrong, or maybe even some wrong conclusion I've made about myself. Is that what's driving the train here? Here's the next one. Huge one. Am I trying to escape something or move towards something better? Am I trying to escape something or move toward something better? Guys, we're going to find ourselves in situations often that are uncomfortable, and there's going to be an enormous temptation. I've faced this in my life. I bet you have too, where what starts to, that discomfort of where I am starts to drive me to want to leave this situation and make it change, right? I got to get out of this job. I got to get out of this place. I got to do something different. And hear me, sometimes that is the answer. Okay, sometimes that is the answer, obviously, or we'd always do the same thing for our whole lives. And if you look in your life and your story, and if you look back, if you were honest, you saw a pattern where there's a history of leapfrogging, and there's a history of blame. That boss was a jerk, and that church hurt me, and they did that, and I had to blah, blah, and you find yourself escaping over and over and over again. I love you. I want you to hear me. You are the problem. Now, say, Ryan, that one kind of hurt. It's so important to know this. I am always going to have to, that problem is going to chase me to new situations over and over and over again. So there's a time where God's going to say, I need you to square off with the issue you're trying to run from. You actually need to work it through, even though it's incredibly difficult. Maybe God is trying to form something in you, and the answer isn't to run from it. It's to let him mold you and teach you and train you so that wherever you go from here on out, you are different and you show up different in that next decision. Right? Am I trying to run from something, escape something, or am I actually being moved into something better? Right? I want to work through that and get real honest with myself about what's actually going on. Here's the next one. Is this choice aligned with who I say I want to become? Right? Is this aligned with who I say I want to become? I want to be the kind of person that X, Y, Z. Will this decision actually move me in that direction, or will it turn me into something else? Right? And if you're a person that you're here and you're like, man, I'm all about Jesus and his kingdom. I'm all about love and loving others. Then you can begin to ask, will this decision move me in that direction, or will it distract me? Right? If I'm going to get real honest about this, who will I most likely become in practice if I make this call? If you disconnect yourself from everything that's helping you to grow and everything that's moving you towards Jesus, do you think that's going to help or hurt you, right, as you move on in your life? Well, it's no big deal. I've watched this happen over and over again, guys, and it's hard to know always what's driving a decision. We never want to judge, but when somebody disconnects themselves and they say, I'm going to take this job, I'm going to make another 20%, and for 20% more, what you're doing is you're disconnecting from your community and from your faith and maybe moving from your church, and 5-10 years down the road, somebody is way over here. How'd that happen? They didn't ask that question of, is this moving me into becoming the kind of person that I actually want to become, right? And getting really honest about it. It's a hard question to ask. Here's the next one. Am I doing this because I feel called to it, or because I feel pressured into it? Is God moving and calling me and drawing me to do some things? Here's what I mean by this. When we were wrestling this one through, calling doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. Sometimes God calls us, Jesus calls us to obey him, and sometimes obedience is really challenging. That's different than pressure. Here's what I've found. I found that there's always people in my life that have a lot of opinions about what I should be doing. They have a lot of opinions, and they have sometimes a lot of pressure around what they think I should do in my decision making. I bet that's true for you too. Here's what I want you to know at Grace. As a pastor, here's what I want you to know. What I want you to do is, I don't want you to do something out of pressure. I want you to listen closely to God's voice in your life and to be drawn into whatever he's calling you to do. Right? I want you to get moved towards what is the deep part of your heart that is unsettled. And when you go to bed at night, you think, you know what somebody should do? Somebody should do something about that. Somebody should do something about that issue, or somebody should go make that decision, and they should move the needle in that area. You've got something in there that's probably bugging you, and it keeps coming up, and you think, you know what, somebody should do something about that. Do you know who that someone probably is? That's probably you. God's probably drawing you in to what he's trying to do in the world in that area, and you are the one that cares about it. Other people, when they go to bed at night, they think about something else. You think about that one. Your family and your friends and your boss and your right? There's all kinds, even your church sometimes. I don't want to be a church like this. There's a feeling of pressure, and we want to ignore the pressure. We want to hear the call of God, and we want to move towards it. I don't want to just be a pleaser of people. I want to be somebody that's aiming to please God first and most. Hard to do, hard to be honest about, incredibly freeing when we can live there. There's the next one, right? Am I confusing urgency with importance? Am I confusing urgency with importance? Because this thing exists, there is a feeling that there is always something going on that I need to be a part of that probably doesn't matter that much, right? There's always a new thing happening. There's a thing that I'm not a part of. There's FOMO all over the place. And I can look and say, man, I should be a part of all that. Maybe I should make that decision. Often the urgent is not the same as the important. And here's a good rule of thumb, right? If you're taking notes, if you find yourself rushing, I'm going to say it again, so important. If you find yourself rushing, push pause. Push pause. I gotta go buy that thing right now, right? This is the time it's on sale. They just dropped it. That is not an emergency, okay? It's not an emergency. I need to go do this. This is urgent. Are you sure that's as important as you think it is? Pause. Sleep on it. Give it a week, a month, maybe. And what will happen is that will fade. The urgency and the heat of that moment will fade, and you'll say, that actually wasn't a big deal at all. Right? Is it urgent? Is it important? Sometimes it's both. That's real. But I want to separate those two and understand them the best that I can. Here's the next one. All right, two more. Is this decision consistent with what I say I value most? What I say I value most. I value Jesus. I value his kingdom. I value my family. If you take that job that's going to make you work 4 nights a week and miss dinner, is that going to move you in? If you're on the road all the time, see, am I actually doing the thing that I want to be doing, that I value most, or what I say I value most? Right, so to kind of drive us into that question, here's the last one, tough one. Am I choosing what's easy, or am I choosing what's right? Often they're not connected, at least they haven't been in my experience. The right thing often is what I want to do deep down within me. There's a desire, most of the time, right? If you have the Spirit of God, for sure, you're going to experience this. But I think in most of it, there's a desire deep down, I want to do the right thing. On a surface level, I want to do the easy thing. I want to do the thing that, man, that one's not going to take that much from me. So it's easy to say yes to it because it's going to be easy. And if I pause and ask that deeper question, is it easy or is it right? It's going to make me dig a little deeper and make sure I'm on the path that I want to be. Right? Now, if you work through all these questions and you found yourself left with a few options you're like, man, both of these still kind of qualify. I could do both of these with all of this kind of check marks all the way along the path. What do I do then? And this is fun. I love this principle. You see this in the book of Genesis. I remember discovering this. In creation, right after God made Adam and Eve, it says the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it. And the Lord God commanded the man, he said, this is great to hear, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden. But you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. Before sin entered the world, God looked at Adam and Eve, his creation, and he said, that one is off limits. That's sinful. That will kill you. Don't eat that. And then he showed them, right, all the other trees in the garden. He would say, you're free to go eat from any of those trees you want to eat from. Enjoy it. Go for it. Here's what I want you to know. You work through this process. You ask the questions about love and motivation, and you filtered it through, and you're left with two options. You can kind of pick the one you want, right? You're left with the option, hey, there's a red one and a blue one, and you like the red one, pick the red one. You've got two career choices or two colleges that both qualify. You walked them all the way through. Pick the one you want. You sought God. You tried to and you're left with it. Go for it. You can make a free decision without anxiety. You're not going to miss God's will, because here's the thing. God does not care so much about red and blue. He actually wants you, just like if you have children, I want my kids to be able to enjoy the things that they do. I don't want my kid to go take the job that I think they should take. I want them to take the one they're wired to take. And they have freedom to go do the preference, even if it wouldn't be my preference. That's knowledge and insight. That's how Jesus looks at you. He's like, man, you like this one? Awesome. Enjoy it. Do that. That's wonderful. After you work through the process, not before. And here's the key. The key is to not flip these. Right? I'm going to love me some me first. And then if there's anything left for you, that's great. And then Jesus is kind of the caboose, right? He's at the end of the line. We don't want to flip it. After I've worked through, have I prioritized Jesus and his kingdom and his people and loving him, giving myself. And when I'm left with an option, I have freedom to kind of pick the one I want, right? And to do that freely. You like Chipotle with chicken? Get the one with chicken. Right? There's a freedom there. And that applies to the bigger decisions in life. You like that house instead of that one, and they're both kind of this, go for it. Okay? Some of us are in the room and we're worried about making a mistake. If you work the process, you're going to land in a place where you honor God and you honor his people and his heart, and then you're going to be free to live your life with Jesus and for him. Say, Ryan, what do we do with all this, right? What do we do with this whole conversation? Here's the key, okay? Me telling you about all these questions, and if we just walk away and hear them, I'm not sure that we have done the work. So what do I have to do? What I think you got to do, is what the kind of thing I would do, is you got to make some time, like a half an hour or 45 minutes, maybe longer if this is the first thing and you got to sit down at the kitchen table or at a coffee shop with a pad of paper and this list of questions that you took a picture of or you took notes of, and you actually have to answer them. Like, write down the answers. You're like, I got to do stuff? Yeah, it's the only way it works, right? I actually got to involve God and work through the real answers, even if they're ugly. And guys, sometimes I've bumped into some ugly answers as I'm asking these kind of questions, and I look and say, God, thank you. You saved me from some bad decisions, right? And sometimes I've made bad decisions because I didn't ask these questions. But if we step back and we say, I'm going to take some time and I'm going to work through the process, I'm going to write out the answers, I'm going to do my best to try to get there, then I can embrace this process with a lot more confidence, a lot more clarity and conviction, and I can know, kind of did my best to discern, like the passage said, to discern what is best. To discern what is best. And if I can get somewhere in the ballpark of love, I'm in the right spot, right? I want to be motivated and driven by the things that Jesus is motivated and driven by. Okay? So this week, can we land there creating real time. It's an appointment on your calendar. If you're in the middle of making a big decision, you need this slot to be able to move forward, great? And next week, I'm going to talk you through and walk you through how to put this thing into practice. Don't miss next weekend. We're going to give you some more tools on how to move it out. We'll also have some baptisms next week. Excited about that, right? But we got to do the work here, right? And let Jesus lean into our heart. He says that above all else, guard your heart as the wellspring of life, and let him speak to us and challenge what's going on inside of us. We want to do some of that even now. The band's going to come out, lead us, give us a little bit of time and space to begin to ask these questions even now. Would you bow your heads, close your eyes with me? I'll pray for us. Lord, you know how much we all struggle with this, God, me first and most. And we long to know your heart, to know your passion for us, that you want us to be able to walk in a way that is best, a way that is right. You're not looking and waiting for us to mess it up. You're not trying to cause us to stumble. You're gently leading us towards wisdom and towards a life that is aligned with your heart. God, help us to believe that today. Help us to know that we can trust you with the direction of our lives. That even if it's the thing that I don't feel like doing, or I sometimes don't even feel like it's the thing to do, staying in a hard situation to let you work something out in us. God, would you give us the grace to receive that instruction, to be led by you, and to have our hearts molded into a heart that looks like yours. Lord, lead us into the next right thing and begin that work even now.